is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Hey there folks, and welcome you all to another random rambling of mine. It has been a while since we've done one of these, hasn't it? It's been about 3 or 4 weeks at least. I think it was tail end of August the last one, and we're nearly at the end of September now. And the only reason for not doing one is simply because nothing has piqued my interest. That sort of, usually when I do one of these, I'm either chilling out and I do it on the phone because I just thought I would catch up with you guys in general, and if I sit down like this properly with the proper big mic and the proper camera and everything, it's usually because something's happened or there's several things I want to talk about, just like there is today. And I hadn't really, it was only halfway through today, I thought, oh, do you know what I'd really want to talk about, because it's really bugging me. So we're here again because of a bugbear of mine, and a few other things that have happened this week which I wanted to talk about, some of which you'll have seen in the title by now. So let's crack straight in. I had this, let's just rewind a little bit with Tomb Raider as a franchise when it was sort of rediscovered and brought to us on these new consoles. Well, in fact, the Tomb Raider bringing Tomb Raider back in its new iteration started on the last gen, didn't it? And then it got remastered. The first one got remastered on this gen. And so Rise of the Tomb Raider then came as a big deal. And it was an even bigger deal because at that point, when the second one came out, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Microsoft got exclusivity to it for about a year before it hit the PlayStation. Now, the irony of all of that was that I bought that game for the Xbox because, as you all know, I've got Xbox One and PS4, so it's irrelevant to me really which console has what, because I can play it anyway. I'm not a fan of exclusivity when it comes to those sorts of games. If you're going to have exclusive titles, then your own studio needs to be making them, in my opinion. I don't like seeing massive time gaps of exclusivity on games that are quite clearly not their own publisher, of any of them, not just Xbox, but PlayStation as well. So I'm a big fan of that not going on, and I don't think we've seen it since, really, to that extent. And certainly Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which has now come out last week or so, again, that was both platforms, didn't get any exclusivity for either of them, which is great to see, and it's fantastic. Now, I absolutely love these games, and so before I go any further, this is actually a gripe about one particular console's way of playing, or problems playing this game, in my opinion. And why this problem is still there, because it's baffling to me, and it's my old bugbear of screen tearing again, and I keep bringing this up in my videos. Now, let me just put it to you this way, right? I realise that there's a lot of people out there who don't really give a crap about screen tearing, and it doesn't bother them, right? Now, I don't understand that. I don't understand how someone can sit and play a game and not even see it when it's so rife in certain places or across the game. And I can't believe it's still happening on this generation of consoles with the power that's in these consoles. And not just these consoles, but the Xbox One and the Xbox One X seem to be the only two that are having this problem, especially with these AAA titles. And I can't speak for every game, obviously. And someone did say to me that they spotted a little bit of screen tearing in Divinity Original Sin 2 on the PS4 standard when I raised it as an issue with me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love playing Divinity Original Sin 2, but it's a problem that certainly wasn't there in Divinity Original Sin 1, and I don't know why it's appeared in Divinity Original Sin 2, because there doesn't seem to be any major difference between the two games, other than one of them might be doing 4K or HDR or something. But, you know, if you're struggling as a developer to actually give us something that runs smoothly without that issue, then just tame it in again. Just bring it in. Just reel things in a little bit. And if you can't manage to give us a pure picture with 4K, then just bring it back to 1080p. I mean, half the world can't see 4K anyway at the moment. So if what you're saying is you can't manage to do it on this power of console at the moment at 4K, then at least give us an option to turn the 4K off and just give us it in 1080p. You know, I wouldn't mind that if it was just in the menu, which would alleviate the problem for me, and then leave someone who's not bothered about screen tearing to play it in 4K. So I can't understand why that isn't there as an option. Turn VSync on. It's on I mean, I'm not a PC gamer, but from what I've seen and read, just about every PC game has a bunch of stuff in its menu that lets you turn stuff on and off, and VSync is one of them. Because if it bugs you that much that things might start tearing, you can put VSync on, which basically brings back the frames per second, I think, tames that so that it doesn't tear. So you might get a little bit slower frame rate, but that I would prefer that to the screen tearing. And it's a purer thing for me. I don't want to see screen tear. I mean, let me put it like this: if you went to the pictures to see, the next Avengers movie, and all the way through the film there was all these lines flashing across the screen, really obvious lines tearing the picture apart, you'd walk out and you'd ask for your money back. I mean, why is it acceptable to pay now £50 for a game, which is another thing I'm going to get onto, that's winding me right up at the minute, nearly 50 quid for a game at launch, and then have to suffer that kind of problem? So you're getting all those lines over your screen in certain areas because they couldn't do it, so they've just left it tearing. It's baffling my brain as to why people are allowed to get away with it. If I'm paying 50 quid for something, I wouldn't expect that on anything else. But with a game, apparently it's okay just to leave a problem there because they can't find a way of getting around it. It's like, well, if you can't find a way of giving me a pure picture across the board, then give me something in the menu that will let me put that in so that I'm getting a better picture with a little bit of come down in performance. I'd rather have that than nothing at all. Or you fix it by taming down the graphical input that you're putting onto the screen, because clearly the VGA or whatever it is that's dealing with it, the processor or the graphics card, isn't dealing with processing what you've got on screen, so you've got to tame it in. And I don't understand why I don't understand why it doesn't frustrate people the way that it frustrates me. It winds me up no end. Like, when you're paying this kind of money for games and it's just allowed to be broken like that. And it is broken because it shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? If I was playing it on PC and it was an Uber PC with all the power in the world, I probably wouldn't have that problem. So I don't understand why it's okay for a game to be released and have issues like that and no one say anything, and it's, oh well, it's just screen tearing, you just got to get on with it. They should be forced to give us something. Now, the interesting part, if we take it back to Tomb Raider, now that I've had my little rant, if we take it back to Tomb Raider, right, there's only one set of consoles that's got screen tearing, and it's Xbox. Because the PS4, and it isn't just on Tomb Raider, on an awful lot of things that Tomb Raider, that the Xbox suffers on with screen tearing. For some reason, the PlayStation people are obviously enforcing the fact that they would rather have their games V-synced than have screen tearing issues. And without any doubt, that is why, both with Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I was watching, the reason I know, I haven't got Shadow of the Tomb Raider yet, but the reason I know that the screen tearing issue is there is because I watched the comparison videos that were on Digital Foundry, and I was specifically watching it for it because it wound me right up that it was rife in Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I wanted to, before I buy it, I want to make sure that I'm not going to have that problem. And the decision's now made because they said that the screen tearing problem is there when you get to certain areas even on the most powerful console in the world at the moment, which is the Xbox One X, because for some bizarre reason they don't VSync it on Xbox, and it's like, why? You know what I mean? Like, if you're that concerned about the frames per second, then at least give me the option to put the VSync on myself in the menu. I don't want to see screen tearing when I'm playing especially a massive AAA title like that. I don't want to see it. It just takes away, and it just annoys the hell out of me, and it takes away from the whole experience. And it's just lazy as far as I'm concerned. You put all that work into such a beautiful game, and then you release it with screen tearing in it. Why? There is no reason for it. Oh, just VSync, people. I mean, it was my biggest bugbear of the last gen of consoles, and I thought it would be gone. I thought it wouldn't even be anywhere near these consoles. But they keep pushing them beyond what they're capable of doing. And instead of just taming it back, like, I'd rather you tamed it back. Don't push for something. This gen of consoles was never built for 4K, and it was never built for 60 frames per second. Not to the extent where we're going to get the pure gaming experience that we want. Like, they need to just calm themselves down, like, and wait for the next gen. If you want pure 60 frames per... I mean, you're not even going to... Next gen won't even see 60 frames per second at 4K. There's no chance. amount of power you would need for 4K at 60 frames per second. You know, it's like, and to be fair, Tomb Raider, I think there is on Rise of the Tomb Raider there was a 60 frames per second mode, I think, but it dropped the graphical capability. But that it didn't matter if you went for the 30 frame per second one, because you were stuck in between a rock and a hard place, because you could either play at 60 frames per second with lower graphics, which meant it was going to tear anyway because it was trying to do 60 frames per second and obviously wasn't capable, and then it had the enriched mode or the 4K mode, both of which were trying to do 4K. So they didn't give you a mode that was just 30 frames per second at 1080p. And if they'd done that, there's a likelihood that we might have got a version of that game on Rise of the Tomb Raider that didn't screen tear. Or it's possible that it was just, even when the Xbox One X came out, that problem was just so rife in the game that they couldn't fix it to that level. I don't know. But when I watch the Digital Foundry comparisons, it's like they keep talking about the fact that on the PlayStation it's V-synced and on the Xbox it's not. And I can't understand why Xbox would just allow that to happen. Because it's clear that PlayStation must be enforcing that. They must be saying, whatever happens, we want V-Sync on. And I think that, for me, that's fantastic. And they're obviously managing what their machine's capable of instead of trying to push this. I mean, I saw an advert for Rise of the Tomb Raider. Xbox One X, the best place to play it. You've got all these different settings. You can turn on the enriched mode. You can turn on the 60 frames per second mode. All these different settings. Doesn't matter in the end though, does it? Because you've still got 5 different ways to play a shitty version of the game that screen tears, because you're not turning VSync on. And I really wanted to play this game on the X because that's got the most power out of all the consoles. And I love my Pro, don't get me wrong, but at the moment the X is supposed to be the most powerful one, and I'm supposed to get the best performance out of that one. And I've actually got quite comfortable playing on my X now. It's a really nice. I love my X, my Xbox One X. It's a beautiful machine, really well designed. You can tell they've put a load of effort into it. So why release games that are going to do that and just make it look like it's shit? When all you've got to do is just tame it in a bit, or put your V-Sync on and let us play it at bloody 30 frames per second standard on 1080p. It's still going to look glorious, you know what I mean, at 1080p, 30 frames per second. Fine, there's nothing wrong with it. So it really, at the moment, well, I've decision made, I'm going to be buying it on the PS4 Pro, because not only is it happening on the X and the standard Xbox, it's not happening on the base PS4. So basically you're saying that it's shitter to play on the Xbox One X than it is on the base PS4. It's like, why would you do that? You just shitting all over your own bloody product because you won't give us an option with VSync on it, or just have it as VSync as standard, and those people that want to faff about and play it at stupid bloody levels can have screen tearing if they want. But I don't get it. And it was as I say, it was the same with the first Tomb Raider, it was the same with Rise of the Tomb Raider, and now it's the same with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and it just baffles my brain, like why you would let AAA titles hit your console and not fix it after seeing it so rife in Rise of the Tomb Raider. And it's interesting because Rise of the Tomb Raider, I really wish I'd kept it, because I actually played a bit of it again on the Xbox One X, Rise of the Tomb Raider, because I thought I'll just get into the mood for it, because I'm going to treat myself to Shadow of the Tomb Raider this payday, I think. And it baffles my brain every time I've tried to play it on the X, because it is beautiful and perfect through the entire first section of the game. And then you get to this scene where you go into these frosty caves. So it's not even the area with the most movement on it that it starts happening. It's just bizarre. You go into this cave and there's a massive pirate ship on sort of hanging down the side of this cave. It's a brilliant scene. It's absolutely fantastic. And then it kind of does a little half cut scene, pans into it, and she walks up and goes, whoa, says something, pans back into gameplay, and the minute you move the stick, the whole thing just shreds. I mean, it is awful. And from that point on, the whole game does it. All over the place. And it baffles my brain as to why. Like, why was it perfect to that point in the game and then just has problems all the way through the rest of it? Absolutely crazy. Don't get it at all. I mean, having said all of this, you know, I've played Gears of War, bit of Gears of War remake. I've played Gears of War 4. I've played a bit of Halo. I've played all of the exclusive stuff from Microsoft, and there isn't a sign of screen tearing. And for me, actually, Gears of War 4 is probably, if not the best looking, then certainly one of the best looking games this generation of console. It is stunning on the X. I mean, it is absolutely stunning. I could not say more about how good that game runs on the X. But it's because it was built in-house and they've put everything into it by the looks of it. And that game was enhanced for X. It wasn't launched for X, obviously. It was enhanced later, and it's incredible in 4K. And there is so much going on the screen in that game. So it baffles my brain as to why you can't make it work in Tomb Raider. And if you're not telling me that, Phil Spencer and Larry Herb and all that lot aren't sitting playing that game and not seeing that screen tearing. So why would you not do something about it? Like, you must have seen it in Rise of the Tomb Raider. So why have you not spoken to the devs and said, how do we fix that not happening again? I mean, it's basic stuff. Like, I don't understand it. It baffles my brain, people. It really does. It winds me up to the point where I've spent 17 minutes talking about it. Somebody get angry with me. I think it winds me up more that nobody else seems to say anything about it. In fact, the thing that really made me laugh was when I was watching the Digital Foundry thing, and I think someone from Microsoft has thrown them a bung. Because they went through comparison of the, like, all of them. So the PS4 standard, the Xbox One S standard, the PS4 Pro against the Xbox One X. And I mean, to be fair, the Xbox One X has got the higher graphical blah, and it's by far the better look. Well, not by far, there's a minimal difference, I think, between the Pro and the X, but the X does a true this, and the Pro does a little thing to make it look like it's true. And then it was like, however, the X has got this, does start to tear in all of these places. And then at the end of it, they went, but we'd still recommend the X over the Pro. It's the best place to play. Why? Why would you recommend it as the best place to play it when it's got screen tearing all over the bloody screen? It can't be the best place to play it, can it? I mean, I'd rather have no screen tearing and a slightly blurry rock than screen tearing and a crystal clear rock in the corner of my screen. It doesn't make any sense, people. So I've no idea what that logic was all about. I take my hat off to Digital Foundry. Without them, that sort of stuff is vital to me. But if I'm making a choice in a game, if I can find out that that's an issue, then it'll swing me one way or the other. So I think the job they do is fantastic. But I don't understand how they're managing to justify playing it on the X when it's got screen tearing in it over the Pro and the PS4 standard, which don't have either. Can't speak. Neither of those have the problem. So, no idea, people. It is winding me up, though. It really is. I can't even begin to tell you. It wound me up with Divinity, because Divinity is the sort of game it shouldn't even be a problem on. I mean, it's a top-down bloody facing RPG. And the only time you're swinging the camera about is just to pan it round to see what's happening in the battle. But if you've got a battle that has got a lot of fire and smoke and stuff down on it, the minute you pan the camera, you can see it starting to tear. I don't get it. I don't understand why that's even happening, because you don't even just turn the VSync on for a game like that, because it's having there will be no performance difference panning the camera around at that level. And as I say, there was none of that in the first Divinity, so I don't know why it's suddenly there in this one. It's got to be the same engine, surely. I can only assume it's because they're trying to push higher graphical content out of it, but so there you are. So that was my biggest gripe. And the other thing that comes along with that is they're asking you for £50 a game, people, now. Do you know what I mean? When a game's coming out now, a AAA title especially, the cheapest you're going to get at one of those games is £45. I mean, I think I'm seeing that $46.99 as a regular price. And if it's an exclusive like Spider-Man, you're looking at £450. And that is a lot of money to people playing games. And even if it was £30, you still wouldn't be expecting a game that isn't right. I don't understand why we accept it. And it's really, really getting to me why it's okay for them to release games with visual issues and never have to be taken to town over it or be told to fix it. You just to accept it. And without actually having companies like Digital Foundry or somebody showing off games before you buy them, you'd be none the bloody wiser as to whether there's a problem with the game or not until you're really enjoying it and all of a sudden the thing tears all the way through it like it did with Rise of the Tomb Raider on the Xbox One. I just don't understand why it's okay. So maybe someone at some point will start hearing people like me and start saying, you know what, but the guy might have a point. That the game isn't right and it should be fixed before it's bloody launched. Because the minute it launches, they obviously don't care because folk have already bought the damn thing. And even, as I say, even when they patched Rise of the Tomb Raider, it didn't fix it because all they cared about was upping it to 4K. They didn't seem to care a jot about actually fixing the problems that were inherent in it all the way through. They just churned out a 4K patch and left it as it was. So, yeah, I don't know. It seems to be every other problem with the game will get some sort of patch apart from screen tearing. Let me know in the comments below, people, if it's just me. I don't get it. I don't understand why no one else is shouting about it, people. I don't understand. All right, shall we move on? I've 22 minutes of that now. Getting bored of myself, people. Getting bored of myself. Right. What else did we have to talk about? Well, here's another thing, actually, while we're on with Tomb Raider. A couple of other things. I'm delighted, by the way, that and it looks fantastic, and I've loved all the Tomb Raider games thus far. So I'm really looking forward to getting it on the... Now that I know I can get it on the Pro and not have that problem, so that's great. It's just a frustration, obviously, because the X should be the one that plays it best, and it won't. So, hey-ho, we move back onto the Pro, and we'll play it there. But while we're on with it, I didn't realise that... my voice has gone funny because I'm shouting. That's what happens when I go to clubs and pubs, people like. While we're on with it, yeah, I didn't realise that this Tomb Raider was made by a different studio than the other two. Crystal Dynamics was still involved to a point, but the actual developers for this Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, was Eidos Montreal, who worked in conjunction with Crystal Dynamics. I guess they were just overlooking it, Crystal Dynamics. But by all accounts, from what Digital Foundry was saying, that the Eidos have really stuck their own stamp on it and made it a lot cleaner. In a lot of places, it's a lot smoother. And they've made it a lot more exploratory rather than just fighting. So it kind of, you can almost see it becoming and evolving into a more of a discovery and type game than an assassin type game, which is good. So I'm really looking forward to playing this one. I think it'll have a slightly different vibe to it than the other two did. But that took me by surprise. I didn't realise. I thought it was just everything the same and here's the next one in the franchise. It does look like, although I haven't played it obviously, but it does look like this one's taking us into where Lara Croft would be as we know her, with the two guns and the shorts and the sort of experienced Lara who kind of knows what she's doing. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the franchise after this, because it was always a trilogy. The girl, oh god, I'm having a mind blank. Anyway, the girl who does the voice, she was saying that she always felt it was always going to be just a trilogy for her doing the voice. So it sounds like she was kind of done with it in an interview that I saw with her. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it next, because it's such a big earner that I can't see them having a massive gap from it. And it'll be interesting to see if they keep it as actiony as it is now. But I love them for the fact that they're kind of one of the few action-packed type games now. Like Uncharted's kind of finished, so that's gone. Your Dead Spaces and all that have vanished, and it's kind of one of the few full-on single-player experience where you can run and gun and sneak and just have a good adventure. And it's a bit of a shame, really, that it's come to that. They're so afraid to make single-player games, I think, now. But it's done it cleverly, because it opens itself up in areas it's got elements of RPG in it just to make it a bit more open. So you've got to make stuff, craft stuff, make life easier for yourself. But in the main part, you could just run through the story and just go for it. And the set pieces and action pieces are absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's awesome. Edge of your seat stuff, fantastic. So I really hope they keep going with it. Maybe that we get a jump in time and we see Lara a bit more experienced and stuff. But it'd be interesting to see. So there you are. It was just something I would throw in there, because I had no idea that it was a different studio in Eidos that had made it. It'd be interesting from that perspective to see if Crystal Dynamics take back control, or is it that Crystal Dynamics are actually on with what happens next? No idea. No idea, people. I wish I could tell you, but I can't. Where are we? Right, so the next big thing, of course, was... well, I tell you what, before we go on to that, I'll actually do the last thing on my list. The reason that I haven't purchased one of the big games that came out was simply because we had Tomb Raider and Spider-Man both came out pretty much the same time. I'm dying to play both of them. I had made my choice that I was going to play Tomb Raider first and get that. The reason that I'm not getting games at launch at the moment is because I'm really cheesed off about the fact that the games are the price they are. And there's this huge argument that says, oh, well, they've been £40 for like the last 10 years. Yeah, they have. But you're now selling about 20 times more of them than you were 10 years ago because of the amount of consoles and the amount of people that are into gaming now. So you can't justify it that way, in my opinion. And I don't understand why it just suddenly happened overnight either. It was like suddenly everything was just 47 quid. And if you're someone, let's say it's not Christmas yet, but it's coming up, and you're a parent or someone that wants to buy their kid a couple of games, that's 100 quid for 2 games. I mean, it's like, from a budget perspective, like it's just insanity. And I just refuse to buy them at launch unless it's something I'm going to be playing on the channel for you guys. I was more than happy to buy Divinity. In fact, to be fair, Divinity was 39, well, I think it was 38 something. So Divinity actually came at a good price for me, and I had some points as well, so I got a bit more off it as well. But as a standard price, it was actually okay, and I was more than happy to buy it and play it on the channel at launch. However, I still had the same gripe with it when it was on the preview, when you only got the first act or something. Because I played, if you look at the Let's Play, I actually played the first part about 2-3 months before the rest of it, because I played it on the preview that you got free. But if you bought the full game, you got all of Act 1. Whereas if you did what I did, you only got like 3 hours or something. But in order to do that, they wanted 50 quid. I was like, I'm not paying 50 quid. Firstly, I'm not going to pay 50 quid for a game that I don't get the disc for, because I'm a disc junkie. I want a disc. And secondly, I'm not going to be paying 50 quid for any title, never mind Divinity. So it would take a big ask for me to pay 50 quid at launch for a game, and it would have to be something I felt was going to be seriously popular on the channel, like an RPG of some description. So there's no point in me buying Spider-Mans and Tomb Raiders on launch, because much as though I'm excited to play them, I'm more excited to be getting them at 30 quid 2 months later. So, you know what I mean? It doesn't really bother me. I mean, it used to bother me not having a game at launch. The only things... Well, actually, the only thing that's popping into my head that I would really cave in for is Last of Us 2. But it's proven itself to me, and I would probably have to see it at launch because I don't want spoilers hitting me. I'd be very difficult to avoid spoilers of that game, I think. So I would have to play that at launch. But outside of that, I don't think much would sway me. Days Gone, maybe, but I doubt it. But we'll see, I guess. See if I cave in. But there's just no point if I'm not doing it on the channel. So that's the only reason I haven't bought or played either of those games. And I'm really excited for playing them, but I'll wait until once they're down at 40 quid, £40 or under, I'm more than happy to be paying. And I'm certainly not going to be buying 2 major titles in a month. Much as I love running my gaming channel, it doesn't really pay me, people, you know what I mean? So it comes out of my standard wallet, that does. So 80 quid for a couple of games, just so that I can have them on the off chance of playing them, not so much. But I'll get one. I mean, if I get Tomb Raider for a month's purchase, it'll do me for a month, alongside recording Divinity for you guys and doing these sorts of things. So realistically, I don't need 2 major titles in a month. So there you are. So that's why I've not purchased any of them anyway. So the big news of the last few days is that Telltale Studios is closing down, which is a massive shocker, actually. Nobody seemed to see that coming. It was just suddenly, there was a tweet that rumoured it, and then it hit IGN, and then suddenly everyone knew about it the following day. And for those that don't know, they're the ones that made the Walking Dead games and The Wolf Among Us and Tales from the Borderlands and a recent Batman one. And it was all the story-driven games. So point and click, make decisions. And it was really like watching It was like watching a TV series that you decide what the choices are that they make on screen. And they're really addictive games. I mean, they're really, really good. And I adored the first Walking Dead game, and I adore my favourite is probably The Wolf Among Us. I just loved that game. And I think I got that on some sort of offer. I didn't play it at launch. And I was like, what's this Wolf Among Us all about? Let's get into it. And I was hooked, absolutely hooked on it. And I think I got into it when there were still 2 episodes not released. So I was sort of chomping at the bit for these episodes to get released. And I adored it, and I couldn't wait for Wolf Among Us 2, and that's just not going to happen now. And apparently I only played the first Walking Dead series. I never played the second one, I don't think. And I think there's a 3 or 4 now. But wherever the last one is, it's only on episode 1's been released and episode 2 is about to be released. And it looks like you're not going to see the finale of that. So those people that have paid for the full season aren't going to get it. And might not get a refund either if there's no company to refund you. So it's really sad. I mean, much as though I'm gutted that I'm never going to see Wolf Among Us 2, I didn't. The problem with those games was there wasn't really any replayability in them. And I think if they'd been clever enough with them, they might have been able to make them a bit more replayable. Because it felt like you had lots of options, but you didn't really. It was kind of 1 or 2 or 3 maybe, but the story didn't divert that much. So once you'd played them, and they were done. And I think in the end, the novelty of those sort of games, I think, wore off on people. And much as though they were making great stories and great quality stuff, they just weren't selling the numbers they needed to sell. And in hand with that, they'd bought a lot of big copyrights like The Walking Dead and Batman and I don't know where Wolf Among Us came from. Probably a graphic novel person somewhere. But they were buying up, like I can't remember what some of them were, but they were buying up a lot of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was the other one they did. They did a Game of Thrones series, but I've never played that. So did I? Did I play one of them? I can't remember now. I might have played one actually. Can't remember. I don't think I have. No, I don't think I have. Interestingly, there was a Game of Thrones proper RPG game on the PS3, which I remember playing, and I actually quite enjoyed that game. I might do a little bit of video on that if ever. It'd be nice to see it hit back compat. I'm always avoiding doing those sort of things in case they hit back compat. Talking of which, there is an RPG that's hit back compat. It's snuck in without me seeing it. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'll just throw it up as a surprise in the next few days. But I've had this RPG for a really long time, and I was always curious if they'd ever back compat it. And today I was looking through I always check the list every now and then just to see if something else has hit it RPG wise for the channel. And sure, I just stumbled across it. I was like, bloody hell, when did that happen? So I've got that installed and ready to go because I still have all of my collection. So I'll record a few parts on it alongside doing more Divinity Original Sin 2. Don't worry, that's still happening. So yeah, so really, really sad to see Telltale go. I just kind of wish they'd found some way of just pulling things back a little bit, concentrating on specific titles. I think maybe they tried to do too much over too many copyrights. And the problem is I don't think you can outright buy a copyright. I mean, there's no way they've outright bought The Walking Dead because we know there's a Walking Dead game coming from somewhere else. But when you make something that's already a franchise of something, you have to pay rights to people. So this is why a lot of companies don't do any games to do with films or comics and that sort of stuff. And the reason that PlayStation have done a massive Spider-Man game is because they own the rights to Spider-Man, so they don't have to pay anyone anything. So, I think when a lot of devs stay away from anything to do with copyright and they want to come up with their own stories and their own adventures and their own characters because then they don't have to pay anybody anything. But when you're talking about The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones copyrights to make games for, they will have been paying through the nose to be able to make those games. Because those two titles are the two biggest watch shows in America. And I think to some extent, The Walking Dead's tailed off a bit in interest for people because, well, I don't want to there's no spoilers. I'm not going to spoil anything for folk that are catching up with it. But it's certainly not as hot as it used to be. And we know that Game of Thrones is coming to its last season. But at its prime, when that first game came out, That was kind of when The Walking Dead was in its prime, and it was a great addition. I mean, it was just fantastic. It felt like it was right in the middle of that world, not inside those, not the same exact same place as those people, but in the same zombie world somewhere else. So there you are. So it's a shame. I hope that the devs that are obviously losing their jobs find work elsewhere. There is a lot of devs looking for developers, so hopefully some of them will find their way into other places, and hopefully the script writers that have been working there will find their way into other places, because God only knows there is so many people could use script writers that good, because those stories that they wrote for The Walking Dead, obviously don't know about the Game of Thrones one, but The Walking Dead. And I tell you, The Wolf Among Us, but the Tales from the Borderlands was absolutely brilliant. Um, I mean, it was laugh out loud funny all the way through. I mean, it was just hilarious. And that was probably one of the most fun playthroughs of a game I've had in a really long time. And I was late to that party as well, because I wasn't a massive Borderlands fan, so I was like, I don't get it. But if you've never played that, you'll just sit and howl all the way through it. The Wolf Among Us was more somber. Oh, there's funny moments in it, but it was very dark, The Wolf Among Us, along with the other ones. Um, and not afraid to get really dark with itself. But Tales from the Borderlands is an absolute gem. I will have hoped to have put some footage of these games up behind me. And if anyone out there is looking for, I don't know, something to sit and play with their girlfriend as a night instead of watching something together, or because it's that sort of thing. Like you just have to make choices, and you could pass the controller to each other. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that that it's the only sort of game that girls play, people. That's not what I meant. Game, for Christ, most of them are better than I am. Better than most of us. I simply meant as a couple, it's a nice thing to be able to play together, because you're kind of watching a TV show and having some sort of input in it, but it's a real hoot at the same time. And I actually found it better than most TV shows I'd seen at that point in time. So it's a really nice one to share if you've got a girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever, and just sit down together and just enjoy them for what they are. And you'll get, I think it was there 4 or 5, I think there was 5 parts to each one. And they're a good few hours each, I think. So it's a fair whack. It is like watching a TV series. And they take you to very different places as well. I mean, Wolf Among Us was a complete mind blown to me. I mean, I didn't know anything about that game when I walked into it. And the whole story was just absolutely awesome, with twists and turns everywhere. Tales from the Borderland just gave me a laugh out loud entire 3 nights of whatever it was. I binged it. And The Walking Dead is just as tense as it is, and the beautiful relationship between the 2 characters in the first one. And I haven't seen the story progress because I haven't played the others, but I'm going to make the effort to do it. I'm probably a bit late in the day to help anyone at Telltale, but they're still games that I will probably play at some point, because they're just so well told, and you find yourself entirely engrossed in them. So if you've never played those sort of games, then I would highly recommend them, and maybe it will help somebody somewhere down the line with paying things or whatever. So there you are. Some sad news, but how many times have we seen this happen to studios in the gaming world? And usually I think it's down to be either making a wrong choice for your game or trying to do too much instead of just keeping things nice and tight. And I think in this case, I don't know, but it sounds like they tried to just expand far too much over a broad spectrum of copyright stuff. When if they just focused on the stuff that people were clearly gasping for. The very fact that there wasn't a Wolf Among Us 2 at this point, that game is well old now, really, in the world of gaming. I mean, it's at least got to be at least 4 years old, 5 years old, surely. And the very fact, I mean, The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us, without doubt, I think would have been their biggest sellers. Possibly the Game of Thrones one did well, but to not have a sequel on The Wolf Among Us when you know how well it went down with people, I don't get that. And I think that kind of does speak a little bit as to maybe they just tried to do too much. I mean, they were doing Batman games. It's like, why are you writing a Batman game when you've got people gasping on Wolf Among Us 2? You know what I mean? Like that's where my head is at with it. So I think maybe they would just try to do too much, and if they'd reined it in a bit and focused on the franchises that people were really keen on seeing more of, then they might have been okay. But clearly, those sort of whatever was happening, they've said it themselves. There wasn't enough games getting sold for whatever they were doing. But it's all relative, isn't it? It's enough games being sold based on the fact you've made 20 games and people only wanted 3 of them. And you only made 1 of them. So, Anyway, it's a shame, but there you are. So there you are, people. I've spoken for well over 40 minutes. Well, a minute over 40 minutes. It's been quite nice being back speaking to myself. And now I'm bored myself now. I'm going to go. Yes, I think that was it, people. Let me check my mobile device. But I'm pretty sure that was all there was. We've talked about why no purchases and the price of games, because we did it before that Telltale bit, and there you are. So yeah, we are done, people. No, it was quite nice getting back to that, and it's a bit strange doing it without a flagon, it has to be said, but I have done it before. Here's the thing, I've not had a flagon, people. This might answer a question, actually, as to why it's been so long I've not done a vlog. But I haven't had a flagon in 3 weeks. I'm going to tell you a story now. I went, for a particular reason, I had to wear my suit, which I hadn't worn, without getting morbid. I hadn't worn it since Mum's funeral last year. And it's the only suit I have at the minute, so it doesn't get worn very often. And I went to put the suit on the night before I needed it, and the trousers wouldn't do up. I was like, for the love of God, fat person, what have you done to yourself? So at that point, it was like, oh, get hold of yourself, Steve, and get it sorted out. And interestingly, it's not that I haven't been exercising, because I've been going to the gym quite regularly, but clearly I've just been eating like a bloody Cookie Monster or something. I don't know what's been going on. So the first step was like, I'm saying this, I only have a little tipple on a Friday. It's not like I drink every night. I'll drink every night, people. So anyway, the first thing I did was, right, no flagons until I get this sorted out. So I've cut flagons out. And over the last week, I've cut bread out. Having lots of light dinners. It's been quite good, because I've been buying fresh sort of vegetables and fruit and stuff. So I've been chopping up but it's things like just a tin of tuna with chopped up tomatoes, chopped up cucumber. I've got some onions from one tonight as well. Throw some red onions in there. A little bit of cheese maybe, but not too much, calorific. So I've been having that, and I've been buying, instead of bread, you get these little oat biscuits or Rivita or whatever. And it's as interesting as you want to make it, but it's been quite nice actually, having light foods. I tell you what, I'm not having, and I've not allowed myself sort of biscuits and chocolate and all that through the week. I can have a little treat at the weekend. So like at the weekend, I had some chocolate digestives and what have you. Some crisps, but nothing too major. And now this week I'm back on the thing. But that's basically why I've not had a flagon. So once I get my weight sorted out, the thing is, I hadn't even noticed until I put those trousers on. Blimey, eh? I'll tell you what must have happened. They must have got shrunk in the cupboard. It must be like, like wood contracts and... I think that's what's happened. They've contracted due to the temperature upstairs. So there you are. So if you were looking at my last one or my last several vlogs thinking, what's that fat bloater all about? I've realised now, and I'm trying to sort it out. So I think there was offers on tubs of Haagen-Dazs ice cream as well. For a long time there was 2 tubs like this big of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, vanilla, and I bought this chocolate sauce to go on the top of it. And I was proper eating those at the weekend, along with my flagons on a Friday and crisps. And so everything I was doing through the week was just getting wiped out. So there you are. That's my little story of why I've had no flagons. So we'll see how far we get with it all, people. I'll certainly hit the month mark, and then we'll see where we are. But when I weighed myself... Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent now, people. I've got nothing to do with gaming. When I weighed myself at the gym last week, I'd lost 3 kilograms, so I was doing something right. So we'll crack on with that for a bit. And a few weeks' time, there'll just be clothes sat here. I'll waste it away, people. So there you are, random story to end things up. It has been an honour and a privilege serving for you in this vlog again after such a long time. And I will see you all in the next one, folks. Take it easy. Bye.